For years, I thought when I heard the word boundaries, I thought of it in like a negative connotation or like it was a bad thing. It wasn't until recently.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. We're so glad you're here for a event about the one question that every woman wished she knew the answer to. This is not your typical panel. Tonight is about real conversations, raw, honest, and unfiltered. So be warned. We're creating a space where truth is valued over perfection and lived experience matters more than polished sound bites. You'll hear from women who face the same career challenges, personal doubts, and crossroads many of us are navigating right now, and who found ways to move through them with clarity and courage. Our goal tonight is simple, that you leave with actionable insights, breakthrough strategies, and life lessons no one ever really taught us, so you can feel empowered to make bold moves in both your career and your personal growth. We're also making this interactive. During the conversation, we'll invite one attendee from the audience to take part by sharing or asking a question that truly resonates with them. When that moment comes, just simply raise your emoji hand. You've got your little reaction buttons there, and we'll bring you into the conversation. So tonight I have the honor to introduce our incredible speakers. We have Miss Lynn Laporte, Ronnie Meas, and deJoly Labrier. Each of them brings powerful lived experience, hard-earned wisdom, and a unique perspective to this space. So I invite you to lean in, stay open, and take what resonates. Be sure to stay until the end for our free prize drawing, because you don't want to miss that. And this is designed to help you fuel your next step. So, ladies, if you are ready, let's get started. Right now, we're just going to start with an icebreaker. So, what's a conversation you wish you had that could have changed the trajectory of your life today? And you know, we can start with Lynn.
I,
Lynn, Ronnie, and deJoly.
all right. Well, good evening, everyone. We're so grateful you're here with us. And for me, oh my goodness, in like listening to my inner compass, like teaching me that I had an inner compass. I think we might all believe in different things, or how we go about life or and not necessarily, I'm not talking religion wise, just we have different beliefs, right? And so I call it my intuition, my inner compass. Like if something in my body didn't feel right, like I was never taught, and maybe it was the generation I grew up in, like to listen to that.
Mhm.
And if I reflect back, I know there were times, even when I was very young, that something was very off and I didn't feel good. But I didn't know, you don't know what you don't know. So
Mhm.
if I had somebody that maybe would have guided me or taught me that, we do have that, inner compass, inner guide, inner truth, inner knowing, that will never steer us wrong.
Right, right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
Ronnie, how about you?
For me, I would say if I were to think back, would be to take more calculated risks despite, and you can fill all those blanks, despite fear, despite responsibilities, despite whatever the case may be. I think looking back, I sometimes, right, we get too calculated. We drive ourselves out of those risks. But at the same time, I with those calculated risks, I wished I surrounded myself with folks that went through, experienced it, and was able to regurgitate some of those experiences and risks back to me so that I could kind of save some years in some of those paths of risks that I wasn't willing to take or could have, should have, but didn't take. So that would probably be my if I were to go back.
No, great. That's awesome. And Miss deJoly?
I remember later in life I read that Maya Angelou quote that says something along the lines of "Don't beat yourself up for not knowing what you didn't know." And I think one of the things that we do a lot of is criticize ourselves. And I know that I did. And the worthiness thing comes into play, and the I didn't do it right, and I'm not good enough, and all of those things come into play because we are so critical of ourselves. And so I think if I could have had someone that I admired, or even Maya Angelou, to sit down with me and say, don't be so critical of yourself. You didn't know. Now that you know, you're doing differently. So it's okay. And I think we got to give ourselves some grace. And I learned over the course of time to give myself grace for things that I didn't know.
I love it. I love every answer, your inner self, your inner being, taking more calculated risks and have someone to have guided us. I mean, and women today are still dealing with that, so I love that we
Yeah.
have this group that we're able to be out there and make a difference, even if it's just in one person's life, right?
Yeah.
So now we're going to, and this is interactive, like I said earlier. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask a question. I'll start with one of our panelists, and we're just going to have it flow from there. So first one will be for Miss Ronnie. Ronnie, think about a moment you felt unprepared or underestimated. Okay. And how did you navigate with that?
So I'm going to take myself back 30 years, almost 30 years. Well, actually more than 30 years. At this point, I'm a teenager. And in the early 90s, teen pregnancy, it's always going around. And I was one of them. I was a teen mom. I was 15. I was going through my first year of high school, and I was married at the same time, all of the cultural aspects. So I remember sitting in a room, and in that room, we were filling out paperwork because I was young. I was part of the public system, and they needed to find out how many students were pregnant or doing this particular, I want to say, special program that the school had, right? And I remember all I was doing was just filling out someone's paperwork, and I was just someone's statistics. And that just hit me when I was sitting there. I was just like, I am just a number to somebody. And it was there where it hit me, and I said, I'm not going to be or make myself, I'm going to be something. And I don't mean it in a cliche, but I was just like, I wasn't going to be a number. And it was that moment that I realized, I was like, if either I choose to be a teen mom and a dropout and so forth, etc., or I could look at, being the first to finish school. Because I remember a couple months before that, I was sitting in a room in the classroom and thinking, how am I going to go to college? My parents can't afford college. How am I even going to make college? And then a couple months later thinking, how am I going to afford a child? Or being able to survive with a child and being married at the same time at 15 years old. What do I know? But I knew then and there that I wasn't going to be a statistic. Whether it be good or bad, I just didn't feel that was right, that I was falling into some line in the number, years later, now 30 some odd years later. I was that first child in my family to graduate from high school, to graduate from college, to still be married 30 years later. So, 32nd year of marriage. So I think that, for me, it's my success story. Bad or good, it's my success story. I can keep to myself and keep to my grave. But it's just something that, I didn't turn in and let go and just be someone else's number in some statistics.
Wow, that is powerful. You broke all the numbers there. I mean, you're like, not, I'm not gonna be, you know, an unwed teenage mom dropping out, mm, getting divorced, I mean, you broke all of that.
And I
Amazing.
think a lot of it has to do with the support system that you have, whether it be your friends, whether it be your family, or even like the professionals around you where you were and who you allowed yourself to come into your circle. It has a lot to do with that, the support system. I couldn't be where I am without the support system. Kiana being one of them.
Absolutely. Wow. I hope people who are listening to this, I mean, hears this, because there are those of us who are moms of teenagers, and like just to hear you say that and to actually overcome. Thank you. And that is definitely a success story. I love it.
Thank you.
So next one we'll go to Miss deJoly. So do you have another story, a story that actually surprised you along the way of to where you are now?
Oh, well, yes, actually. Um, First of all of you have stories that have surprised me. Um, Recently I read the book Killers of the Flower Moon. And this is going to be a section of the story that I want to tell you, and that is that in the second chapter of that book, within the second page of that book, my ancestor that I didn't even know was alive then was mentioned. My my granny, my on my mother's side, my granny's brothers, or no, my granny's husband had two other brothers, and both of them were in Fairfax, Oklahoma, where the Osage Indians were, big. In that time, they were given by the government. They were given the land and all of the mineral rights underneath the land for as like compensation for being shipped over into Oklahoma. This was from Trail of Tears, the Cherokee moving over into Oklahoma. And my mother was born in Fairfax, Oklahoma. So I picked up this book because it was called Killers of a Flower Moon, and it was about the birth of the FBI. And I'm kind of one of those, I'm interested in that kind of thing. So it shocked what out of me when I saw that my mother's maiden name was right on that page in the book, and they were the killers. They they were doctors who were systematically injecting the Native Americans there with for diabetes. They were telling them that they were giving them insulin, but they were also lacing it with poison, arsenic. So it was a slow death. So I mean, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And so that totally surprised me. That part of my history goes back to killers, and but I also have met recently a lot of women who have just been amazing to me. I know I have a story, but I don't think of people who are just happy and happy-go-lucky and doing well in their business as having a story that could have turned their lives totally different. I mean, I have a friend who had a stroke, and it took her almost 8 years to be able to come back from that, and now she lifts weights and she jogs, and before she had the stroke, she had two master's degrees in science and economics and chemistry and all that, and she was teaching at the university, had written a book, and then she had a stroke, and it took her out totally for 8 years, and she worked herself back piece by piece. And that's the story of perseverance. That's resilience. That's just like, oh my gosh, how can a person not able to get out from under the covers into the light for so long, all of a sudden now she's got clients, she's thriving in the business that she chose and never thought she would ever go back to teach again. And now she's teaching again in the university. So it's kind of like, you know, I just say anything is possible. It's just totally possible.
Wow. That's like a wow story, you know.
Totally shocking.
Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. That's just more than just a surprise. It's like, are you kidding me? But that's great.
Mm,
I love that. Yes, there's that part of your history, but then again, look at it, or it doesn't have to continue in that direction. And look at
mhm,
where you are
mhm.
now, you know, doing great things for other people. So thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
that. Okay, Miss Lynn, um, here's my question for you. When it comes to negotiating salary, asking for promotion, or just speaking up, what's one thing that no one ever told you about making your voice heard that could have possibly helped you in that situation?
Wow. Um, so I would say communication and like how to articulate what you're saying in a way that someone hears you and actually listens to what you're saying. For the longest time, one of my coping mechanisms was like emotion. So sometimes I would cry. I'd be in the office in in a meeting with a manager, and if something came up that was uncomfortable, the emotion would come up and I would cry, and I was always so embarrassed because I couldn't control myself. And at the time, I really didn't understand what was going on. I do now, but I didn't then. And so for years, I was I was always, I never felt worthy, like maybe asking for a raise or asking for something. Um, and that changed the trajectory of my career for a very long time. And even my personal life, actually. Um, and then in the past, like 3 or 4 years, I also learned about some personality science. And I actually went on and got a certification in it, and how there's four different colors, and like deJoly maybe one color, I'm the other, Ronnie you're another, and Joyce you're another, and um, Kiana you might be one of what we all are, you know. And if I say something to deJoly, she might not, if I'm not speaking in deJoly's language, she might not interpret it quite the way I want her to interpret, or it might not have the same meaning. So I found that very helpful. Um, but yeah, that for years, how to communicate. And even I didn't do, deJoly knows this about me. Like, I didn't do well in English in high school, and I didn't do well in English and communication in college. Like, because for the longest time, I also told myself that I wasn't good at it. And I know now, that too would have shifted things. Um, but how you communicate, and like if you have a little confidence around, yeah, I can communicate that well, it's going to deliver better than if you don't feel like you're worthy of speaking the words that come out or that you want to come out. I don't know
Mm,
if that makes sense to everyone.
no, absolutely. You first have to develop that confidence inside of you. And if that may be someone telling you how to speak, knowing your audience, right? Learning their communication style, um, all those things. There's so many factors to take into consideration. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, because as women, especially in the Asian culture, we're slowly learning to be able to speak up, but not too many women know how to do that. And like you said, having those, knowing the different personality types and their languages really makes a difference. Yeah.
And I want to add to that too. So,
Mhm.
Lynn, you had mentioned about the different styles and speaking to certain people, in this case, I'll say my children, um, they hear things differently. And I don't know if it's this generation or not, but they hear things differently. So, for two of my children versus the other two of my children, they hear things differently, even though I may be saying the same thing. One has to be you have to be very exact as far as what you would ask them to do. I'll give an example. Put a pot, I want you to boil water, put a pot of water on the stove. Street sense in my mind is putting the pot on the water on the stove, the pot of water on the stove and turning it on. They would say, you never told me to turn it on. You just told me to put a pot of water on the stove. And I'm sitting there going, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So, and it's just so strange. The other two would tell me that I don't know, as an Asian mom, Joyce, as you had mentioned, in the Asian culture, we don't show emotions. And I'm learning to show those emotions. And the way that I communicate is very different. For me, communicating to them to show my emotion is through yelling, right? Or showing the other pieces that they're like, it's okay, mom. I know you can. They understood me by saying, I know you can't communicate through emotions. So you communicate by yelling at us. So that's how I show my emotions, is by yelling at them, like telling them what's wrong and why they're not home. And really, I want to say, I want you to be home more. So
Right,
yes, we do
right.
communicate a lot differently, and luckily they understand my pet peeves and those other pieces where I can kind of communicate with them in certain ways. But it's almost like Mars and Jupiter at this point with children and of different generations. And I have to say, all four of them are from different aspects. When you talk about like the X, Y, Z generations, they're one of each. So you get one of each of those generations from all those four.
Well, aren't you lucky?
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so much. I mean, we can like dissect this section just by itself. We could go the rest of the evening, but let's move on. Now, as far as you know, talking about careers, communication, what things that you felt unprepared for. Now, let's go into personal growth and self-care. Let's go back to you, Ronnie, and ask you, can you share a failure or setback that ended up teaching you more than success ever did?
I'm still trying to find out what success looks like. So, but I'll go back to the relationship. I mentioned earlier there was you need the support system, and earlier in our careers, my husband and I were out and about a lot, and my mother-in-law has been our kind of like our foundation. She's the one that took care of the children, making sure that she was the one who told me, because of her background, she didn't know how to read, she didn't know how to write in her own language, and it was because her parents had basically said women aren't supposed to know how to read and write. So they never let her into school. So in her kind of reverse psychology, if you will, to kind of help me out, is basically say, you know what, I never learned how to read and write, so I am going to do what I need to do for you to go to school and finish your schooling. So like this was like coming from someone who couldn't do anything because her parents were so strict back in her day, and she was just allowing me to kind of fulfill my dream, if you will, right? And just doing that. But anyhow, trying to get back to what you were saying, sharing that setback, was she taught me in that whole support system of what you do affects others. So the story, my husband and I, we were out at a wedding. Mom stayed home to watch the children, supporting us while we went out to this wedding, and we came back in a heated argument. Um, Something silly. It was something I couldn't even remember what it was, but I knew it was something silly, small, and stupid. Bit heated argument, and she pulled us aside and she said, I spent my time watching your children for you so you can go out and have fun. But yet you don't realize when coming back who is here to stay with your children. And that was enough. That was enough to kind of like take us back and just say, why aren't we thinking about the surroundings? Who is your support system? Who's there for you when you need them the most? And how are you treating and taking advantage of the situation that you have? So from then there, I have to say, my husband and I have never fought in front of her, have never even fought since. And that was probably 20 years ago.
Wow.
It was just one of those things, like, it wasn't worth what we were putting everyone else through just of a tiff or an argument and so forth, because it's not about you at the end of the day. It's about who's around you, who's there to support you and help you, that you don't see yet, but they're there all the time. So I guess that was like bigger than success for me. It's just understanding that, and that helps carry a person's relationship further, because it's not just about you anymore. It's about everyone else around you.
Life lesson from a wise woman. I mean, really, that's it. And I love that you pointed out it's not about us. It's about everybody else. Because when you are outward focused, then it's like, it brings everything into perspective of like, is that really worth the argument? Right.
Yep. Is it worth it?
Exactly. Okay. So let's go to Miss deJoly. So society loves to tell women, you can have it all. But we know the reality is more nuanced. So how do you navigate that tension?
That's a good question, because it takes a lot of experiencing that, knowing that it is nuanced, because in general, just like Ronnie was saying, in my day, women weren't allowed to do certain things, right? But as we've progressed through time, women are doing more, but they're not doing as much as their counterparts, let's just put it that way, as the men that are in their lives. So the nuance, how I navigated is I learned early on that, like Ronnie learned, it's not worth the fight. Be who you are and live an authentic life, and then whatever comes, comes. I was thinking about that in terms of the nuances, because I was in business for a while. I was in uh, government business, and I dealt with a lot of men. It was kind of, when you're in government, most of the people in it, if you're not the secretary, you are the secretary. You're not the boss in charge in government, so to speak. And I learned a lot from that, because I had some good bosses and I had some bad bosses. Some who encouraged me to do better or do more, not do better, but do more, because they always knew I was doing really well, doing good work. And so the nuances are, yes, they want me to do more, but will I get credit for doing that? What I learned is that I do a lot better on my own, doing my own thing, than I ever did when I was working for someone else. And I have the freedom to do that. And that when I was speaking around the country, I was like, I can do this. I can't believe that I can do this. And yet I was. And there were a lot more women in the personal growth field. So I wasn't alone in that. I was alone in the you're the secretary of the department it kind of mentality, as opposed to the person who was the expert in healing from extreme trauma. I'm just going to put it that way because I had a background in that. And so I was more welcomed, and I think women are far more welcoming. I should say I have a little caveat over here that I'll talk about later if I get a chance to, but um, they're more understanding. They have more of a desire to do personal growth, that kind of thing. So they're welcoming in that field, in that way. So the nuancing is that we almost have to overwork, overproduce, overcreate, all of that in order to be, quote, equal to our counterparts when we're working in a business, as opposed to working on our own. Our measurement is against ourselves rather than against someone else. And I always encourage people to look inside uh, for that, because you're not going to get it from outside in the normal business world. So that's I felt like that for years and years and years. And I finally said, I really do like working on my own and working for myself. So
Yeah. And I'm sure you've been in situations after you're gone, then they realize your true value.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, how many people, back in my day, we worked on electric typewriters, right?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have computers then. We had electric typewriters. And when I first got out of high school, I could type 20, the librarian I was hiring in as a clerk typist in the basement of a library. And she said, "How good are you at typing?" And I said, "Well, I took typing in high school, and this was while I was in college. And I could type 23 words a minute, but they were accurate." And she said, "You're hired." So
Oh yeah, back
as I
then it's
as I
like words per minute, right? That's what counts on
oh
your
yeah.
resume.
Yeah, so well, anyway, I ended up with 123 words a minute. So, but that was because the more you work and the more you type, the better you get at
The
it, right?
faster you get, yeah,
Just like in any business, you get better at things that you do repeatedly, hopefully.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. All right, Miss Lynn, for you. So self-doubt is quiet but persistent.
Mhm.
How do you handle it, especially when no one else seems to notice?
Wow. Self-doubt. Yeah, that is constant vigilance with self-doubt. Um, I never had coping mechanisms to work through it, work with it, I guess is what work with it, I guess, is a really good way for
Mm-hmm.
me to talk about that. And actually tailing off of what deJoly said about overdoing, like that for me creates self-doubt. Because if I never think I'm good enough for what I created, I'm that itty bitty committee in my head is never going to be quiet. So
That's a
making
great one.
yeah, itty bitty committee, be quiet, sit down, take a seat at the table. Um, you really need, I mean, I've learned that I have to work with that committee because that's where the self-doubt comes out, right? Because I get that chatter. And
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
then it just overflows into all areas of my life. So how I learn to manage that is, is it chatter I want to hear? Is it, you know, I am happy, I am healthy. I cannot wait to put my feet on the ground today, right? That's good chatter. That can itty
Yeah,
bitty me all day long. But
yeah.
when those tapes start to play, like, I'm not good enough, like, you know, what I did 10 years ago, the things that I've done in the past that I really wish that I hadn't have done, the
Mm-hmm.
person that sits here with all of you today would never do again. Um, that'll creep back too.
Yeah,
So it's really about looking in the mirror every day, and if something comes up, pay attention. Like, why is it a once in a while thing? Is it a story, right? Is it a story that keeps coming up. And why does it keep coming up? Because I'm probably not looking at it. Um, so, I think there's a meter for me of self-doubt, and I try to keep it really low.
Yeah. And you're right. No, I feel that even though we're at this point where we've reached some success in our lives where we should be more confident, that committee never stops talking, and I think one of the ways that we as women can learn to tackle that is like through meditations, affirmations, to
Yeah.
where your voice gets loud enough to just cover the noise, right? And and the support system that Ronnie mentioned earlier. I think it's very, very important. Did you want to say something? Say
Oh,
something?
yes, I wanted to add one more thing to the things that you can do, and that is journal, to write.
Mm,
Because for me, my recovery came through writing, so that I wouldn't like go off the deep end all the time with my committee, because I had a committee. I had a lot of committee. And so so I think it's important for us to all discover what really does work for us, because some people
hmm.
just can't, don't even get it about meditation, but they
Right.
will sit down and do a diary, right?
Yeah.
Or they'll do a journal, or I think I want to write a book. Well, okay. So, you know, I think it's important for everybody to know what their modus operandi is for that healing process. And for me, it was writing.
Right. No, thank you. It's the same way, right? We all have different learning skills,
Hmm.
coping skills, all this.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and and that's what I love about Red Women is that we're a very diverse group with diverse experiences. I mean, just
Hmm.
here
Yeah.
alone tonight, we're learning so much. So thank you,
Hmm.
ladies. This is great. Are you having fun?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Joyce, can
Good.
I add one more thing to what Lynn was saying
Absolutely.
early
Absolutely.
in relation to the itty bitty community inside our heads? It's just as important to get your external, I'll say outer, bigger community that sees the
Right.
diamond that you are, that you don't see for yourself. And I'm not saying the person that you go to that's always going to be your cheerleader. I'm talking about someone who experienced it, knows and can see right through you and can kind of tell you, you're worth that extra whatever $1,000 raise that you're looking for. You're worth, you take that risk and do blah, whatever the case may be. And
Mhm.
those are just as important as our writing, our meditation, because it's another way. Because sometimes we just need a little added extra support out there to kind of tell us what we don't already see.
That's right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Again, perspective, having other people in there to talk to you. It's great. I love it. I love it. Okay. Ready for more?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Bring
Stay
it
where you are,
on.
Ronnie.
Bring it
Stay
on.
where you are, Ronnie. You're next.
Uh-oh.
So, what's one relationship lesson that no one really talks about? What do you think is that one relationship lesson that no one talks about that we should be talking about?
I hate to sound cliche, but sometimes love is never enough. It's never enough. Um, you start with that. And sometimes love might not even the start of it. At 15, what do you know about love? Right? I still guess and I still question, but I can tell you that I can't picture myself with another person other than my husband. Um, and it's more than that. It's who he is that can keep that loves my family more than me. Um, that is able to um, go beyond traditions. He's an Asian man as well. He's macho in his way, but at the same time, he can go beyond traditions and say, you know what, I don't care if you're the man of the house, even though, you know, I don't care if you're wearing the pants. It doesn't matter to me. I can be Mr. Mom. It's okay. And that goes beyond love, I think. I think it it's more than that. And no one ever told you that you can turn someone macho or you can learn from them just as much as they're learning from you along the way. And at the end of the day, you kind of settle with each other's, and I don't want to say compromise because it seems bad to say that it's a compromise. It's not a compromise. It's just understanding. It's like when you have the twins that can end each other's sentences.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that. It's that type of relationship that you build over time, and no one ever teaches you that. It's just something that you learn over time.
I agree. That's a great lesson. I think social media, you know, the movies, it portrays like, oh, what a relationship should be, but the best lesson is experience. And like you just said, you know, love is not enough.
A great start.
It's a great start.
More.
Yes,
it's a great
exactly.
start, but there's more.
Yeah. Thank you, Ronnie. Okay, let's go to Miss Lynn. So boundaries, we all like to have our boundaries, right? Boundaries can be hard. So how do you set them without feeling guilty? And let's just say, you know, with our loved ones, with our family, where we know we should, especially our family, I think. So how would you set them without feeling guilty?
So for years, I thought when I heard the word boundaries, I thought of it in like a negative connotation or like it was a bad thing. It wasn't until recently that I really like, I love boundaries. Boundaries are really good. They, you know, create and foster really healthy relationships if you choose to honor them, set them, honor them. Um, and for the longest time, I didn't have boundaries for myself. I would let people overstep on me. I would overstep on people. I don't even think I really knew that I was doing it. Um, and what I've come to learn is it really, as I said, it really strengthens those relationships if you begin to set some. And then for me, self-doubt, like I don't have as much of it if I set some boundaries. For instance, I had to set a boundary. Like, so my youngest son just got married this year. He moved to South Carolina. We're very close. I have an older son as well that lives locally, but the youngest is the one that I want to talk about. And I I don't know that. I mean, I thought I had good boundaries, and then you know, during the whole wedding and everything, I started to question that. So coming on into this holiday season, I had decided I'm not going to invite myself for Thanksgiving. Now, granted, I went to visit him for his birthday at the beginning of November. Um, but I decided this is the first holiday season, so I wasn't going to invite myself because I felt like, you know, if he wanted to invite me, he would invite me.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I didn't violate my boundary that I made. And I didn't get invited. But what I come to realize, like in this whole thing, is I put these expectations on the boundary. So I really didn't, I made this fictitious boundary in my head but it wasn't. It was just baloney. I was just trying to fool myself. So you even have to check your own boundaries, right? Am I really like making a boundary and does it make sense? And if
Mm-hmm.
you don't, if you're unsure, ask one of your red women. You all have my back. can type
That's right.
deJoly a message, voice her, and I can count on all four of you. Even though I'm just getting to know Ronnie, I know
Mhm.
Ronnie, you would tell me the way it is. You'd say, Lynn, this is the way it is. I know that to the bank, all of you. And that's one of the things I love about Red Women too, is that I, our community, we all want to be here. We all want to live in that on authenticity, live our best life, and create healthy boundaries. So,
Healthy boundaries is key, you know.
yeah.
I mean, both for yourself and for others. I think, and there's so many factors, whether it's culture or our upbringing, you know, that like sometimes some people be like, boundaries, boundaries are wrong, you know, like, why would you do that? We're family, you know what I mean? Like, we're supposed to be helping each other. But again, it's easier, like, let's say, or not even easier, because we tend to do that, like what deJoly was talking about earlier, you know, being at work, you know, the secretary, where she just wants to do everything. And I think there are women out there that hoping to get that acknowledgement, that praise, so that, oh, I'm just going to do more, I'm just going to do more, to where they forget to set their own boundaries, right? And this is such a great reminder that it is necessary, and we have to pay attention to our own boundaries, like within ourselves, just to make sure that we stick to that, um, and have integrity, you know, for ourselves.
And I know for me, what I learned, I used to like in the personal and professional spillover, because I mostly work from home.
Mm-hmm.
So what I found I was doing is I wasn't like setting a schedule for like the boundaries that I had, like Saturday mornings, my husband and I usually have breakfast together. We'll have coffee. It's just we're both home that day, always in the morning. And so now that time is sacred to me, unless if it's an emergency or we have a red woman meeting once a month. That's my sacred time. And I honor that. That's like, to me, that's a healthy boundary that builds a good relationship. But not on Saturdays, but on other days, what I would do is I would overcommit because I didn't want to say no. And I think sometimes like saying no is a boundary because if
Mm-hmm.
you know you're overextending yourself, but you do it anyways because you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings or for whatever reason. And then it's like you've got this day that's like you're so overwhelmed. It brings up the self-doubt, it brings up anxiety, it brings up you got no boundaries going on because you just completely, set yourself for this like roller coaster day. And how good do you think your meetings are going to go that day? Or what, I think you're just not fully present in what you're doing. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Honor yourself, definitely. Okay, Miss deJoly. So let me ask you, what do you think does it really mean to support other women? And have you experienced surprises? I'm sure you have in those dynamics.
Definitely have surprises. So for me, supporting other women, I mean, I could go on to the boundary part because that's part of it is setting boundaries for yourself
Mhm.
and support other women supporting your boundaries. In other words, not trying to trample over you or not trying to force you to commit to something that you don't want to do. No is a complete sentence, and you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. So, supporting each other doesn't necessarily mean that you go out of your way to make sure that um, they get a ride to some place that they were supposed to go. It might be simply I send a few paragraphs to Lynn for her to look over and give me some impression of how it came across to her. Um, it could be, you know, do I have what's called in my practice, I have my clients create what's called an awesomeness journal where they put things in it that that people have said or have done and have responded to them in a way that's just like, man, that was great, deJoly, that you did a great job on that talk, whatever it was. And I put it in there. I printed out off my computer and I printed out and I put it in that journal. And over the course of time, if I get to that place where Lynn was talking about, self-doubt and all that stuff, I go get my awesomeness journal out and I look at all those comments that people have made. And I had to have two people just hounded me forever about saying that I was amazing. I'm not, I wanted to know I'm not amazing. I'm not amazing. Be humble, blah, blah, blah. And finally, one of them bought me a pillow with two flamingos on it, and it says, Be flamazing. So it's two flamingos looking at each other and says, Be flamazing. So that was a way for me, from those women, supporting me in my growth toward understanding my amazingness and my awesomeness comes through that journal. So I can tell you that I've had plenty, over the course of time, I've had plenty of the opposite, where women have definitely not supported me and wanted me to go to the nearest hole and pull the dirt in over me. Kind of think, as a matter of fact, I moved to this mountain with the intention of being in a nice community where women were supportive and all that stuff. And it turned out to be the opposite. And I want to back, piggyback on what Lynn said. Boundaries are not walls, they're just boundaries saying, this is not something that is in alignment with my beliefs, my thoughts, my being. And if it doesn't fit, then that's outside of my boundary. That's just not part of my life. I don't bring it in my life on purpose. I have purpose I guess I'm more intentional than a lot of people, but I have the experience of women who have not been supportive. So I don't purposely bring them into my life. And that's a boundary that I've chosen for myself. And sometimes I'm alone a lot, and that fits my personality, actually. And over the course of time, I've understood I kind of like my own company, but it is partly because I finally got it that not everybody is going to be supportive of the amazing woman that I am, and not everybody's going to be supportive of the amazing woman you are. So you're going to find yourself, you're the woman who has to be the one who's saying, "Atta girl, deJoly, you did a great job. Yay." That kind of thing. So um that's been my experience with, yeah, I was totally surprised. I guess I came out of that recovery. I went through a period of recovery from the abuse, and I thought everybody was going to love me and all. Boy, did I get a surprise. But I found this group of women called Red Women. Oh yeah, that's us. And we do support each other. And it's great. I love that we can get on here, and it's true. I can text any one of you and know that I'm going to be supported, even if it's just saying, yeah, you're having a rough time, but you're going to make it. That's all you have to do, just say, yeah, atta girl or whatever, or sending prayers, whatever. So to me, that's one of the benefits of being in Red Women, is that you have a sincere group of women who can support you. And you don't have to walk on the other side of the street when they come by, like I do sometimes. So
No, great, great points. Thank you. We really do. I mean, not just because we're in Red Women and we're having these conversations, but it, Ronnie started it, having that community support system makes
mhm,
such a difference. We're already
mhm,
dealing with the world out there, right? Who's
mhm.
just hitting us left and right.
Right, right.
You need that safe space
Hmm.
where
Hmm.
you can actually grow and flourish and
Hmm. Hmm.
be ugly, just cry ugly if you need to, and this is who we are. I mean,
Hmm.
I know, Kiana is always promoting us, but it's she's a safe she's a safe space. Red Woman is a
Yeah,
safe space,
yeah.
and I love that. Okay, moving on. Let me go back to Lynn. Let me go to Lynn with this one. So Lynn, what is one mindset, skill, or habit that transformed the way you navigate your life or your work?
Journaling, hands down. deJoly already mentioned it. Paying attention to what comes up, whether it be at a girl, like good stuff, or if it's like dark or,
Mm-hmm.
and when I say dark, I mean like beating yourself up, like a self-doubt kind of like I'm not good enough, or why didn't Susie like my Instagram post, or which just stuff like that that like will beat up on yourself. I
Mm-hmm.
journal about that as well, which one of our other Red Woman members has been instrumental in my life teaching me how to do that, like journal both the, and I don't like to use positive and negative. So I don't know if like just the good stuff and the not so good stuff, let's say, journal both of it and work through it, sit with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not like a quick rush process. And then I burn a lot of stuff in the wood stove too. But journaling, hands down, has changed my life.
Do you just write down all your thoughts on paper and do you read them again as you're trying to work through that? How how does the process work for you?
So for me, it's different every day.
Hmm.
So sometimes I get up and journal what comes to my mind. Like, I am grateful, I am healthy, I am happy, I am so, thank you, thank you, thank you. Everything always works out in my favor. I'll start my day with things like that. Or let's say if I had a weird dream or something, like somebody was in my dream and it's like it, it brought up maybe an old memory or something from the past that was connected to trauma, actually. I'll write that down and I'll marinate a little bit on it. Like, why is it coming up? And then like flip the script, if you will. So write down all the things that are like beating myself up or that like aren't serving me, and then, turn it around and speak life, speak goodness into that situation. I don't know if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know if I
And
answered
do
the
you read
question.
them back? Do you read them back?
Yes, sometimes more than once, sometimes not. Like this morning, I got up and I just started writing. I didn't even know where it was coming from. Just started writing. That happens a lot. And some of it was about something that had happened in the past that I'd never truly forgiven myself for. So, I mean, I think I journaled like 6 or 8 pages. And then after I got everything out that was up here in the, um, then I started writing some, you know, um, good things, like I'm not that person today. I'm like just things that would solidify or lock in the human that I am today. And then I'll burn it a lot of times. A lot of
Okay.
times I burn date, like just get up and, I say, collapse, everything that's ready to be healed, collapse all timelines, blah, blah, blah. I have my own little thing that I write. And then a lot of times I'll just stick it in the wood stove. But then I also
Okay.
have laminated things.
Okay.
I'm that girl. I've got a lot of laminated things, like a lot of affirmations um, around just feeding positivity and good stuff into myself. And then stuff around business, stuff around health, stuff around personal.
Hmm.
And those are the ones that a lot of times are ones that I like repeat several days a week. I laminated those and I have they're with the journal. They're with the they're with the happy journal.
Yay. I love
Yeah.
that. Treasure. Those are your treasures, you know? one of these days it's very easy to just forget things. So I love that you're able to work through the not so good and then let it go. But the good stuff, you hold on to bring back happy memories, happy feelings, to, I guess, as a reminder that, you know, that was a good time. That was
Yeah.
good. And get your body into in that right, mindset as well. So um, that's great. I love it. Uh, Anyone else journal? I know deJoly does. I think I'm gonna have to try that.
I use the words rather than good and bad. I use affirming and challenging so that I'm not reinforcing good and bad in my head, because good and bad is stuff people said about me when I was a kid, and the kid attitude comes in when you start saying good and bad. So for me, I use the words challenging and affirming. If it was a challenging time and I worked through it, got resilience, And if it
Go
was
girl.
a good time, oh yeah. And if it was a good time, a positive, affirming time, that to me is like, oh, that's a good memory, deJoly. Keep that one. Oh, yeah.
Love it.
Good
Ronnie,
stuff.
were you gonna say something?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Um, Not necessarily journaling, but one habit that I am consistently inconsistent is being consistently inconsistent. That, especially when it comes to my health and exercising, I hate the word exercising. It's just, it just makes me turn in my stomach because I just don't like doing it. But every year, around New Year's, you have your New Year's resolution. I know that I'm never going to commit to what I've already set up for myself when it comes to exercising. But I just recently learned a skill. I wouldn't even say it's a skill. It's just something in my mind. I think it's how my brain works, is to break it down into bite-sized pieces and then be okay to reset and break it down to even bite-sized pieces. And I learned that I can't do 30 days. I can't do 2 weeks. That seems a lot. But if I said 15 days or 2 days or 3 days, that seems okay to kind of tackle it in bite-sized pieces and then reset if I don't do it. Kiana knows exactly what I'm talking, because I just talked to her about it the other day. I'm like, I'm going to try this 15 days of whatever it is I plan to do. And I'm not a big proponent of repeated stuff. I always want it to be different. So the difference keeps me entertained and it keeps me in and consistent. So every 15 days, I shake it up and do something else. Even though I don't finish it, but at least I can reset and do it again in 15 days. And even within the same exercise, for example, let's say it says 3 sets of blah, right? I switch it around, I count, I'll do, okay, if I had to do 30, I'll do count to 10, and then I count to 15. Back to 5, just so that it's not 30, because 30 seems a lot.
Yeah.
So
Baby steps,
pieces.
like you said, bite-sized pieces, baby steps, whatever can help you, navigate
Yeah,
through that.
I can relate to that, because I mean I do it like a minute at a time.
Yeah.
And right, you're
But
15
that's
days.
but
Hey,
that's good.
you're good for 15 days. I'm
Yeah.
just
Do
like,
you
oh,
you know,
I walk by my kitchen counter and I do a push up on my counter, and then I'm good for the day.
yeah.
And the other thing is scientifically, you can, your body can respond and tone up just by meditating and seeing yourself doing those exercises. So
Yes.
knowing that you can do that, I've lost 7 pounds in the last 3 months just doing that, because I'm obviously
Oh,
so it's
There
real
you go,
interesting.
Ronnie. We'll have
There
that's
you
to
a
go.
great
give
that's a great point. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna sit and meditate my fat away. That's awesome.
it's all in here. Uh,
Um,
hey, it starts somewhere, right? Just like in the
that's-
book, Atomic Habits. It's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
taking out your your clothes, like for exercising, preparing yourself, a little bit of time, walking over to the door, actually getting out of the door, yeah, slow habits, but at least, I think consistency is key. Like you said, whether you make it or not, reset.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, Miss deJoly, this one is for you. If you could tell your younger self one truth about life or career, what would it be?
One truth would be that there's always hope. That even if as a child, I felt unsafe. I felt, and it was all real. It wasn't just like I was making it up in my head. Um, Unsafe, always sad. But I had this real interesting inner world. And so I was able to talk myself into being hopeful that there will be something better. If I just make it through this, something better will happen. So, um, and I always say, you don't buy one egg, you buy a dozen. That means you have hope that you're going to be able to finish the dozen. You don't, it's just a matter of keeping myself up enough to know that the hope is still there, that I mean, I've gotten a lot of encouragement from Kiana with all the things that we're looking at that I have done and that I can do. And that means there's hope for me. Not that not that I'm a loser or anything, but that there are things still in my future that even at the age that I am, I still have things that I hope to accomplish, and that I can do those things. There's nothing impeding my progress toward that. So for me, it's like it has to be hope. I think we're all born with that. We're innately hopeful. We're hoping that mom will look in our eyes and see how precious and beautiful we are. We know that. And so we're born with it and we exude it, and then it gets squashed somehow sometimes, And then but there's that little piece of hope back there that if given a chance, it'll blossom and it'll grow. And you have that, internal expectation that everything is going to be okay because you have hope that it's going to be okay.
Yeah. No, that's beautifully said. Without hope,
That's right.
what else is there? And
Mm.
and I was just listening to something with Warren Buffett. He's like at 94. I realize even when he actually said, if you're 50 or 60, you still got a long way to go. 70, 80. I mean, you know,
Well, my
coming from
mother
a
died.
96.
My mother died a few years ago at 101. So
Wow.
I have kind of a feeling
You
that I might be around a while.
you have longevity in your genes. So
Yeah,
yes, this is only a beginning of an the beginning of a new chapter for you right here.
that's right. That's right. That's right.
Okay. Uh Last but not least, Miss Ronnie, what is the most surprising lesson you've learned that no one warned you about, aside from what you've already brought up? How being pregnant like at 15 and overcoming all those
I think
generational stuff.
me- probably they're precious. Memories are precious and it can't be just stored in your brain. They deplete with age. And I'm just learning to be open to pictures. And you see those movies of people going through their parents' photo albums and they're pulling out these pictures of way back when, even before they were born. And that's nice. That's nice to have. And I never cherished it before. I it hit me when my mother-in-law passed away, and of the 20 some odd years I have lived with my mother-in-law, even longer than my own parents, I only had one picture of her with me. And that was surprising. That was surprising because we were looking for pictures to put as a reel, if you will, for her funeral. And there was only one. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, I had all the memories, but I didn't have the proof. And it's disheartening to realize that. So I'm being a little bit more open to being these to be more virtual and out, and being a little bit more having pictures and more pictures of myself, whether I like it or not. So yeah, memories, just never realizing that it's depleting.
Yes. I was actually talking to someone earlier too, talking about journaling. The the children were, or the children actually asked their mom while her cognitive health is still good, tell us about like your experiences, our family, or a little bit about our family history, because 2 generations from now, no one's going to remember you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put it on paper, you put it on writing, you document it, maybe create these books, like these memory books, or nowadays they can just be digital. Instead of doing like a 23andMe, well, here's something better. These are actual memories of our family history that
Yeah.
that you can have. And like, even though deJoly is talking about ancestors who were like doing those things, you can still document all the great things that they did. You know, my maiden name is Mesina, and we found like there's a city in Italy, in Sicily, called Mesina. And there was an article one time. It was a guy who was like a mafia, a member of the mafia. I was like, oh, do we come from that? you know, but but you know, those are things like you said, the memories while you're still healthy and you can remember. They can be documented through journaling and photos, and not making it about us, right? Like we were just talking about earlier. When you're outward focused, when you're focused on the generations to come, and how do you want to be remembered by? That's going to be part of our legacy. You know, you don't have to be this great businesswoman who taught all these things. It's like my grandmother, my great great grandmother was awesome. She raised 4 kids and this and this and this. So, anybody else want to share?
Yeah, we're talking about taking pictures and everything. This what I usually have my clients do is get a picture of themselves before 5. And here's a year and a half. Oops, there, a year and a half. So I think that the more you can keep those memories going with the pictures. I mean, I take videos of my cat, you know. So I think it's important because our our history, our vibe, everything that's about us, um, is stored in our brain, in our memory. But if we don't have that outward to look at, for instance, I know for one thing that people who have Alzheimer's will get up and dance because if you play the music from their time period that they really like, they'll get up and dance where they wouldn't normally, right? So what we do is with the pictures, we stimulate our memory, and with the journals, we stimulate our memory, reading them over, not burning everything. Because sometimes we do, I do that too, Lynn. Um, but keeping the pictures, allowing yourself to not be so critical of what you look like, but to enjoy yourself being who you are. That's critical. And I applaud you for doing that, for getting out and doing that, even as it is in your life right now. You know, 30, 40 years ago, um, I started speaking publicly about a lot of different things, but um, it was important, but nobody took pictures, you know, nobody took pictures because of the situation. But when I left there and I had written the books that I've written, they have pictures of the things in it, right? So I'm like, they're important. That's our DNA, you know. So I congratulate you for getting out and doing that, coming on here with us.
Yes, great
Thank
job.
you.
Um, so what was great. I mean, time has gone by, like super fast. These are great conversations. So, not direct to anyone, but if you ladies just want to take turns on if you could leave the audience like with one bold takeaway, what would it be?
I'll go first. I think
Okay.
I mentioned earlier, what is the meaning of success? So this is more speaking for myself, is not to leave this earth thinking success is just materials and adventures I've taken in life, but the people around me and how they see me as me and how much I've helped to contribute in a positive sense in their lives. So that would be my envision of everyone thinking of themselves as how do they judge their success? Is it the materials, or is it who you've helped along the way and who you could help along the way? Um, you know, it's just endearing to think that you could help someone, and I'm hoping that a message shines through to someone hearing, seeing any of us, and that is his own way a success.
One truth would be that there's always hope.